All right.
Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. Breaking news in Billings. An officer-involved shooting has left a suspect dead. It happened around 6:30 this evening in the 700 block of Cook Avenue as U.S. Marshals attempted to take that suspect into custody. Q2's David J. was on scene just shortly afterwards and joins us now live with more tonight. David?
Well, Russ, we're on Cook Avenue between 7th Street West and 8th Street West on the north side of the block. Behind us is the Billings Police Department crime scene investigation van. And this happened just down there, about 2 houses down is where the shooting happened. The U.S. Marshals Violent Offender Task Force was serving a high-risk warrant on a man from out of Colorado when things kind of changed there and ended up turning into a police shooting there. So the suspect's the only one that died in this. All the officers are fine. The Billings Police Department is conducting the investigation for the U.S. Marshal Service, but the Marshal Service will be the ones that will release a lot of that information. We're told that, and then the coroner at some point will be letting us know as well, and the name of the victim. But right now, not much more information than that at this point. Did hear from some of the neighbors around the area that it sounded like a bunch of firecrackers that went off when the shooting happened. And you may have seen in the video there were some holes in bullet holes in at least one of the vehicles back there. But that's the latest from out here. The police department still on scene investigating here on Cook Avenue. Russ, back to you.
All right, thank you, David J. reporting live tonight. In other crime news tonight, 36-year-old Alexander Garrett LaForge III being held in the Yellowstone County Detention Center on deliberate homicide charges. That's in connection to the shooting of Brett Ness. As we previously reported, the 24-year-old Ness was shot back on April 27th at his residence and pronounced dead in the hospital. Ness died of a single gunshot wound to the head. LaForge is also charged with driving a motor vehicle with a revoked suspended license, fleeing or eluding a peace officer, felony motor vehicle theft, and felony probation violation. And a Billings woman arrested last week after a stabbing death near Terry Park is now charged with murder. Prosecutors have filed a deliberate homicide charge against 38-year-old Charlotte Rodarte in what's described as a meth deal gone bad. Charging documents state the suspect repeatedly stabbed 36-year-old Leon Gustafson in the chest in her home at 612 Terry Avenue back on June 12th. Gustafson was later found dead in front of the house. Charlotte Rodarte and her brother Dustin Rodarte were arrested that night in Lockwood. The suspect with blood on her hands. Dustin Rodarte, who's been released from jail, told police his sister stabbed Gustafson multiple times while calling him a snitch. Charlotte Rodarte is set to make her first court appearance tomorrow. Well, Custer County health authorities have moved swift and certain after a recent burst in confirmed COVID-19 cases. The Custer County Miles City Unified Command strongly recommending that the county return to phase 1 of the governor's reopening plan. That recommendation effective immediately and for the next 2 weeks. Officials say all local businesses, athletics, community events, and assemblies should return to phase 1. Now, the recommendation is to go back to no more than 10 people at public gatherings and avoid non-essential travel. Custer County reported 3 positive cases on Monday and 6 on Wednesday. The health officer says the total of 19 cases puts Custer on par per capita with much bigger counties.
They've had these positives trickle in over the matter of months. We've had all of our positives in the last 2 weeks. We don't have the public health resources. We don't have the healthcare resources that a lot of these larger jurisdictions do. What we're going to do is watch and see what happens over those next 2 weeks and change, again, some of our tactics, again, to really focus on workers and people who are at very high risk, keeping them shielded from this outbreak at that point.
And to support public health nurses, the Montana National Guard will be there in Miles City tomorrow, June 19th, and Saturday, June 20th, to help run a drive-through testing event that'll be at the Eastern Montana Fairgrounds. State health authorities are catching up with Montana counties on the latest confirmed cases. Today, the state is reporting its largest single-day jump since back in March. Take a look here. The state now reports 25 new confirmed cases. As we reported yesterday, 4 of those cases are in Bighorn County, 4 children under the age of 10. There are 4 more cases in Flathead, Gallatin, and another 3 here in Yellowstone County also being reported. Fergus County announces its first 2 cases, and Valley County along the High Line reports its first positive. Well, the Montana Fair will go on. That's the good news. The not so good news, it has officially canceled all of the major events, including concerts, rodeo, and Supercross. 4-H and FFA livestock will still be held, but move inside the First Interstate Arena. The grandstand's removal process will also be halted during the fair and the work area fenced off. Advanced Value Pass ticket holders will have the options to refund or roll over their tickets to another option beginning on June 22nd. All right, turning to Chief Forecaster Bob McGuire. Bob, turned out to be a nice evening after a pretty good amount of rain.
Oh, you'd be surprised how much rain we had. Well, we're going to tell you how much rain we had. Let me show you. This is how much we had since midnight tonight. Last night here in Billings, we had 0.08 of an inch of rainfall. Yeah, so it's still raining after we all went home. And as you can see, other places like Lewistown and Livingston, even up to Great Falls, they were your big winners. They had 1/4 to 1/3 of an inch of rainfall. But let me show you some other big winners. These are our 2-day totals. Near Wilsall, they had 1.9 inches of rainfall, almost 2 inches. Roberts had 1.44, almost 1.5. Pryor had 1.25 inch rainfall. Rapple almost 1.25, and Billings Heights had 1.05 inches of rainfall. The airport, they wound up with 0.82 inches of rainfall, almost an inch of rain out of the 2-day total. So yeah, we've had a lot of rain, and guess what? We still could see some more showers moving in again tomorrow. We'll have more about that coming up in a few more minutes. Russ?
Thank you, Bob. The pandemic is continuing to claim jobs, even as shops and restaurants reopen their doors. Last week, 1.5 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits. That number slightly higher than expected, but the downward trends do continue since March. With the record numbers unemployment, there are many unemployed that have yet to receive any money, and state agencies across the nation remain understaffed and overwhelmed with a backlog of applications. Also today, it was announced, AT&T announced plans to close 250 stores and cut more than 3,400 jobs. So Montana healthcare providers are encouraging Governor Steve Bullock to continue efforts to expand Medicaid coverage in Montana. They say it's critical for patients dealing with the pandemic. They also say even without the COVID crisis, the coverage is an important way to help people improve their quality of life. MTN's Dennis Bragg reports.
During a roundtable discussion Thursday at Missoula's Partnership Health Center, Governor Bullock noted how the legislature's decision to expand Medicaid couldn't have been timed better, giving Montanans a lifeline for the pandemic.
Medicaid expansion will cover the costs of COVID-19 related treatments, as well as continue to pay for routine medical care. Low-income adults in states that didn't expand Medicaid wouldn't be eligible for that Medicaid coverage.
Just as importantly, Bullock says the expansion has given Montana's rural hospitals an important financial foothold at a time when many small hospitals across the country are closing. But those participating in the discussion noted that the expanded coverage is allowing health centers to make a dramatic difference in people's lives. CEO Lori Francis explained the percentage of patients with no insurance has dropped from 50% to 12% since the latest expansion. That's allowing the clinic to help people address other social changes like housing and underemployment that have a direct impact on public health and Montana's economy.
There's a huge stumbling blocks in our society that are not the fault of the individual. And it's a failure of the system, not of the individual. And we need to have things like Medicaid as a safety net to help them.
Quirk told the governor of the painful experience of trying to help a rancher navigate through a health crisis while in fear of losing his livelihood. Missoula small business owner Amy Casso told the emotional story of the fear and uncertainty of dealing with a breast cancer diagnosis while self-employed. Circumstances tough enough already, but doubly difficult during a pandemic.
It becomes that much more essential. I mean, no one should be making a decision whether to forego preventative care or making sure that the only place that they get care is an emergency room because they're trying to choose between literally keeping, a roof over their head or addressing their health care needs.
In Missoula, Dennis Bragg, MTN News.
Governor Bullock says the state is still waiting for word from the federal government on the latest round of Medicaid waivers, but says Montana will be able to continue operating under the most recent state legislation. Elder Grove School showed off its brand new middle school to staff yesterday. Now the district is asking for additional funds to fill the building with resources aimed at growing alongside a rising population base. The Far West End District has put a $599,000 levy initiative on a July 7th ballot. Elder Grove voters haven't passed a school levy in 33 years, defeating the most recent effort in 2015 by a 54-46 margin. The main goal of the new levy is to add trade industry elective classes to prepare students for the job force.
The reality that we want to create here in this middle school is to create tomorrow's tradesmen today. We are looking at some industrial art opportunities and some art offerings that we haven't had before. And this levy would give us that opportunity and so many more to advance our students' futures.
We're looking at a metals lab and a wood lab and a ceramics opportunity and things that, even with the industrial arts piece, could provide kids the opportunity to get jobs in high school because of their experience here with that elective.
The proposal number is 73% of the maximum the school board could have asked for. Schmidt says they did the math and arrived at the specific figure they need to continue to operate successfully for the growing district. Still ahead on tonight's 10 o'clock news, a day marking the end of slavery in our country will be celebrated in South Park on Saturday. We'll have the details on Juneteenth Day next. And in sports, Gary Roller looking back on his 16-year career as GM of the Mustangs. He's going to share some of his favorite memories.
You're watching MTN News with Janelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.